Welcome to the Not Just AI podcast, a show where we explore how AI engineering and design come together to shape the future of AI led transformation. I'm your host, Pranay Agrawal, co founder and CEO of Fractal Analytics. At Fractal, our mission is to help companies get value from AI engineering and design. Today, we have an incredible guest, Chetan Kandhari. Chetan is the SVP and Chief Innovation and Digital Officer at Nationwide. Nationwide is one of the world's largest insurance companies with diversified insurance interests across auto and home to pets and farms. And at Nationwide, Chetan leads the digital strategy, AI strategy, and the development of customer centered digital products. All right, Chetan, let's get started. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I want to start with this first question. Nationwide has made a pledge to invest $1.5 billion in AI up to the year, I believe, 2028, through 2028. So tell us a little bit about that. What is the thinking? What areas do you plan to invest in? How are you thinking about ROI around this? This is very exciting.
Yeah, firstly, so thanks, Pranay. Thanks for having me
Of
on
course.
here. It's always good to kind of share, if you will, how Nationwide is thinking about our own technology investments, and frankly, really leaning into the mission and vision of Nationwide. And I always start with, first and foremost, the mission of our company. The mission of our company is to protect people, businesses, and futures with
Mhm.
extraordinary care. And so that's really important. And at Nationwide, we really believe we are technology enabled, but people connected.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, we really serve and give a promise to all of our customers and our members specifically. So for us to do that really well in today's fast changing times, with the amount of pace that we have going on in the industry, at the end of the day, the customers and members expect service that is excellent. They expect extraordinary care, and they expect things that are done in real time, in the
Mhm.
moment, on demand.
Mhm.
People don't really have a lot of time. We all seem to have, even though we have all the technology in the world, we seem to have less and less time to do what we want to do.
It has reduced the amount of time we have.
Yes, it does. And so where that leads me to your question. So really fundamentally, we need to make sure that we have the capabilities, foundational capabilities, technology, infrastructure, the technology systems, modernized platforms, um, and AI to enable some of those needs and to enable our mission and the vision of our company. And so, the 1.5 billion is really more of a, I would say, investment across all of technology, and a portion of that is related to artificial intelligence. Um, and so, where Nationwide is a highly diversified company,
Yep.
and we have um, property and casualty, which has multiple businesses, and then we have our financial services, which has multiple businesses. And a lot of what we've been doing and continue to do is modernize our platforms. And that is super important as we think about our artificial intelligence. Um, and if you start thinking about the need for data and really getting data out of the place where we have to get it to enable AI, that's also a big portion of what we have to do. Uh,
Yep.
and then we have to get our workforce ready for it as well. And so to me, if you think about a highly diversified company, think about the mission and vision of our organization, and really think about a reimagination, a rewiring of capabilities through the investment of a modernized infrastructure and systems, it brings us to the need to invest. And really invest is what we consider to be material, quite a bit of materiality to make and keep our promises to our members. The other
This
thing
is
I'll
great.
say, if I may add two more things, Pranay, we also need to make sure that we do things both from a enterprise perspective and also from a local perspective. And so we'd like to really balance with how we execute things around what we call flagship initiatives and also initiatives that we recognize have to be done locally to advance our AI agenda.
Very good. So, way I may way I understand this, and at Fractal we talk about AI-led transformation of business value creation in three distinct pillars. Now, one is AI-led business transformation, which is, as you said, supporting your core mission of protecting futures with extraordinary care. So, how do we reimagine, let's say, customer onboarding, or how do we reimagine the claims process or the underwriting process and drive more efficiency, as you said? And then to do that, you spoke a lot about creating the AI foundations, which is our pillar two, around the modern data, the compute, the cloud, all of that kind of stuff. And then the third one, very interesting, is rather AI workforce and workplace transformation, right? So training the people and getting them that. So if you think about your core business or the number one area, which is around AI-led business transformation, what do you see as the highest priority items there for an insurance, a diversified and a large insurance company like yourself?
You know, I'll just probably talk more in, kind of if you think about at large the insurance value chain. And
Yeah,
it's not whether it's whether you're with Nationwide or you're with one of our competitors.
yeah,
When you think about the insurance value chain, you think about things in three or four dimensions, and you can break it down further. But you think about what is going to be the future of underwriting, and how do you make sure that underwriting is advancing with AI, yet making sure that we are a highly regulated industry. We need to make sure that all of our underwriting decisions are well understood as humans in the process there. And so we just have to make sure that I think about the domains of claim. Um, again, we have to make sure we balance what is AI versus what is human. And then you think about servicing, and then you think about, frankly, the sales side, right? So maybe switching the order a bit, but you think about all the way from sales into product pricing, underwriting, into claims, and then servicing. You start thinking about where do you have maximum value, and a lot of it depends on really, I think, what's each insurer's fundamental value proposition or
hmm hmm
strategic differentiator. So it kind of depends on what you believe is your strategic differentiator to make sure you don't lose that element and make sure you double down to keeping that differentiation alive. And so that doesn't get disrupted. That's how I think about it, at least how to help frame
yeah,
it and prioritize it. You know, if you are an insurer that it believes that, and you're heavy in personal lines, you might do one thing. If you're really heavy in commercial lines, you might do another thing.
yeah.
And if you're heavy in doing something else in a different line of business, you might say that's where the secret sauce is. So I think you got to take it between the vision that you have, the strategy you have, and that leads into your core differentiating advantage that you want to keep a leadership position in.
Okay, excellent. That is really nice to hear because you're saying that it is not about AI first, it's about strategy first.
Yeah, yeah,
And how does
yeah.
AI help me further my strategy and build on the competitive advantage or the area of advantage that we want to create?
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think a lot about this, which is, you know, I have a background in heavy technology background, innovation background, digital transformation background now for about 20 years at Nationwide, and a lot of transformation. And I think leading with the business strategy doesn't change even with AI. The difference that I see now is a lot of technologies that could be translated into some tools that are going to make marginal, maybe incremental benefit. I think we're in a position with AI where you cannot treat it just like a tool. You have to
Mhm.
treat it like a tool plus an operating model
Yeah,
that can get you exponential benefits.
yes.
However, it is still about the business strategy. So companies should have a business strategy enabled by AI, which is bigger than a tool, as opposed to AI strategy that you start with and say where in the business you want to apply it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you just said here, which is really important, which is the reason why AI is not just a tool like any other in the past, because earlier it was about making what we were doing more efficient. But with AI, we have the ability to completely change how we're doing it and what we're doing, yet
And I'll
driving
double
the
click on
same
that.
business outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll double click on that, on what that means for me specifically.
Yeah.
Is we were always we had constraints. AI has loosened a lot of constraints
Yeah.
that we had earlier in now reimagining. And that's but where it becomes really exciting is it's released those constraints, but the human mind hasn't released those constraints on a day-to-day perspective. So when you have that, I guess, when you don't have the human mind releasing the constraints yet, but the technology is available,
Yeah.
I think the companies that move faster to release those constraints will benefit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So let me push a little bit further along this, right? So uh, I understand that you have moved or are moving in some areas from pilots to scaled operations. Where have you found success, or where have you found the highest ROI? Anything that you've been surprised by along the way?
Here's what I'll say. Yeah, we've certainly moved from pilots to things at scale. We also
Mhm.
have more pilots running as well because one thing you know better than most of us do because you're in the industry day to day is the evolution of this capability, of this technology plus capability, is so fast that what you were piloting last year is different to what you could pilot this year because the capabilities
Yeah.
advance. So, I like to break up in my head very simply where are we in a predictive AI journey? Where are
Mhm.
we in a generative AI journey? And where are we in an agentic AI journey?
Yeah.
And so if I just broke it down that way, we've been doing predictive AI for many insurers, many financial services companies, and others for a while, and we've had a lot of success in
Yeah.
there. We've had models and claims, models across different parts of the value chain. I think we did a lot more generative starting in 2020, soon after the GPT moment, and we found a lot of success in generative in different parts of the value chain. And as you can imagine, generative was really good in search and summarization. And
Yeah.
so we found pockets of search and summarization where it took people a long time to work through things and to give them a head start on
Yeah.
that. So if you were an associate in a claims department or if you were an associate in working with a customer, can you focus and be more empathetic talking to the customer and let the AI to help you to summarize some of the content while you're on the phone or what have you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
that's where we saw some more. Now we are more in the, I would say, in the agentic space, and that's where we are. I think that has to be treaded carefully.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value could be obtained, but I think without having the right guardrails, without having the right governance, um, and frankly, even the right decision decision management
Hmm.
frameworks, I
Hmm.
think you have to be very, very intentional about it. And I like to separate out agent versus agentic. We have a lot of scaling of
Okay.
agents that we've done. So we have
Okay.
agents that people are using, we deployed. We have probably a lot of agents, but we're not necessarily saying we are all in on agentic. We certainly think there's a lot of value, but agentic really means giving a lot of your human agency away. And where we
Right.
believe right now is we use AI as a really high thought partner to amplify the work of the human being.
Okay. Okay. All right, great. Uh, Spend a little bit time maybe on customer experience because you called it out as doing it with,
Yeah.
protecting futures and doing it with extraordinary care. Insurance is a particularly complex product, and for most consumers, it is. And I think, frankly, even for businesses, and especially, if I'm a smaller business and I come across insurance not that frequently. I don't use it that frequently. It is a fairly complex product. So, how have you used AI to simplify and demystify the product and how they should use it for your customers, whether it's individuals or businesses?
Yeah. Look, things that we are certainly considering is how do you help um, really augment the sales process or the service process
Okay.
with AI helping in real time through that process.
Hmm.
And so you can kind of help demystify that. So you can go in and say, I want to get a quote.
Yeah.
Okay, if somebody gets confused, can you use English language, a natural language through AI to help shepherd that process, if you will? Um,
Yeah.
and so to me, that's one. I think there's another one, which is what I think we have to be even more cognizant of, is consumers can educate themselves a lot easier now because of personalized AI tools.
Yeah.
So how do we need to respond
Yeah.
if you're coming in with an educated person on
Mhm.
on a product? Where I believe where we are is I think we have to keep giving the appropriate capabilities to our distribution that allows them to amplify their understanding of what products we have and much faster, shorter cycles in understanding those so that they can be effective for the customer and
Yeah.
the member. So what I think about this is from a demystification process is I think we have to be always on a path of simplicity. One of the things that I like to remind ourselves is fundamentally we're in the business of risk. When you take risk, it is complicated. We actually believe, we are really we believe not just believe we know, we're excellent at it. And so for us, we want to just make sure that at the end of the day, we provide comfort that we are there for the customer. And
Hmm.
so, we need to make sure that we give them comfort on the time of need. And if we are there for the time of need, that's a big part of how we provide extraordinary care or when they communicate with us. So I would say that's a probably elaborate answer to say, yes, at the end of the day, we like to make sure that we provide the right capabilities in the sales and servicing process.
Got it. Do you have this ability now, or is that planned on the horizon wherein a customer could just chat on your website to understand what coverage is provided, what the product means, or even getting advice on what to buy for various kinds of risk situations and all of that?
So a couple of things, where we are is we certainly have answers. We certainly have a chatbot you can work with. We continue to enhance it and
Hmm.
make it, just like every other capability, making it better and better. And we are on that. We are certainly on that journey with conversational AI within Nationwide.
Yeah.
One of the things we like to make sure is we like to make sure we give the information, we give the ability, but we let our intermediary channel specifically help make sure they can provide the right expertise to customers when they want to buy a product for us.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Um, I want to move a little bit to we've spoken quite a bit about how we'd apply it, how we'd create business transformation, how we'd create value for your customers, as well as for your employees, make things better, easier for them, etc. So I want to move a little bit to the other part of it, which is, some of the foundations part of it, right? And one of the big issues, especially in a regulated business like insurance, is around security, trust, explainability, etc. Talk to us a little bit about how what areas is it more important in your business, and then how are you addressing those?
So specifically a question on explainability.
Yeah,
Okay.
explainability and compliance, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think we have to be very intentional about in our space across the board is where do we still need to be very deterministic versus
Mm.
probabilistic? We
Yep.
cannot, just because AI provides it, doesn't mean we have to use an agentic capability everywhere. So we
Yep.
need to make sure we also have there's specific rules that we need to make sure that we follow as defined by the DOI and frankly, all regulators that we have. And so, from my perspective, uh, again, we need to make sure we are very clear about where we apply agentic versus truly deterministic logic.
Yeah.
And that's not going away. Just because AI is around, that is not going away. So when we have underwriting decisions, we want to make sure that we've got a human in the loop who's
Mhm.
actually making the call appropriate in the right businesses that we
Yeah.
need to have, and we need to have explainability and traceability
Yeah.
for that. Certainly, if you have transactions where perhaps you're thinking more of paying a bill, and you want to make that a lot more easier for the customer. Maybe that one you can make it a little bit more. Okay, let's make that more natural language. Let's make that more, a little
Yeah.
bit more agentic. Where okay, I'm paying a bill. I can't pay it today. Can I pay it tomorrow? Or you know what? Can you give me a different due date? Something like that. Maybe you don't have to have as much explainability. You still have to have traceability. You still have to make sure that you're following, the business rules or the knowledge that we have internally and our
Mhm.
processes.
Yeah.
Uh, but you perhaps don't have to have that portion of the process so heavily regulated, unlike making sure that your pricing, your product, your underwriting has very crisp claims, indemnification, or what have you. Has very crisp, deterministic processes still to follow.
Right. So that's an interesting thing, right? Because with or without generative AI or agentic AI, in fact, even predictive AI for that matter, uh, a lot of the insurance processes are probabilistic in nature and they're heavily dependent on unstructured data. Like when you make a decision to underwrite a home versus not another, or to give some person price X versus another person price 1.1X, there is an element of probabilistic assessment over there. So how does that change, or how should we think about it differently when, let's say, a person is doing it versus we're seeking the answers from an AI application?
I mean, just to simplify it, back to your original question around explainability. And
Okay.
so, and explainability could be a very much a highly contextual thing, which is
Mhm.
then put in by the underwriter from a full context perspective, what it is, and be able to trace it and explain it appropriately. So, you know, there is still a deterministic process to do that, as opposed to, so you could have a probabilistic step, but an overall process is deterministic, as opposed to, or you could have apply a, you know, maybe a different a rationale step or inference or reasoning step,
Yeah.
which is done by the human,
Mm.
but it's still documented through that process, which is explainable.
Right.
So that is where I see the distinction.
Right. So the critical part is that being able to trace your decision back and say, this is the reason why we made this decision.
Trace
Have
it,
that doc.
explain it, and
Yeah.
follow the boundaries and guide rail that you have to.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Uh,
What we don't want to do, you hear all kinds of stories, which is an agent decided to do something that was not asked to do.
yeah.
And if it's truly agentic, it kind of, and then you're like, what? Can you explain that? And that's where it becomes really, really risky.
Yeah.
So, you can't go down that path.
Yeah. 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 One of the interesting things about the insurance business is that it is about a lot of unstructured data. Whether I am insuring and the more complex the product, I think the more unstructured data comes into it. So, probably at the easier end of it is like insuring a car. It's very little unstructured data over there. But then I start insuring a home, I start insuring a business, I start insuring, and a more abstract product like, an event and so on, right? You need more unstructured data. And in that light, I suppose that generative AI is a big, big source of competitive advantage if you use it appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, certainly to help you get productivity,
Yeah.
it could be a certain, make you more efficient, and maybe
Mhm.
even get at times more clarity on quality.
Yeah.
for it. But yeah, absolutely. To help you, if you've got in some large when contracts, you've got huge large contracts, can you use generative AI to help you interact with the documents where you have a lot of questions, you ask questions because that's unstructured.
Yeah.
And you can actually ask questions to structured databases, as you know,
Yeah.
too. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, so it really, you can get a lot more productive by not only reading the document, but asking your questions three different ways, four different ways, and getting rapid answers to that's available in the document.
I'm getting a lot of surety because, yeah, uh, think about a large contract, 100 pages, 150 pages, very lot of nuances, the ability to draw into the exact right, nuance of it and to isolate the right risk or potential risk. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit on the people side of this, right? You have spoken about building a bionic workforce where people, the talent is augmented by AI, right? So, what does that look like in practice for you today? What might it look like a few years down the line?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to human machine collaboration.
Okay.
That's really what that means. So it's, we have to collaborate with not just other humans around us, but with AI, you're
Mhm.
collaborating and amplifying your work
Yeah.
with the machine that's generating this
Yeah.
content. So that's what it comes down to, where you have to, let's take it this way. In the past, you asked previously you're like, okay, I'm working on a spreadsheet. It would be prepared. The spreadsheet would be prepared, or a report would be prepared, and you would look at it and go, okay, this is what the data is telling me, and then you would try to make some decisions. Well, now, if you are being able to have a document and you can ask questions back and forth through generative AI prompting, getting
Yeah.
responses, you're actually collaborating at a different level. That's what we mean. And so, how do you collaborate? What's the, so from a work perspective, how do you get more critical thinking in workforce perspective? How do you get more creativity in your questions? Because you're getting more time to ask these questions and you're getting more data perhaps. So what does that mean? The decision making becomes faster. What does faster decision making mean? In a systems thinking process. It could
Yeah.
mean that the next decision has to be made quicker. It could mean that other teams who have been relying on you for 2 weeks to make a decision because you did the data analysis can make it a week faster. So now, with machines being able to collaborate in this way, I think you end up having this concept of a bionic workforce. So that's kind of netting it out. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have started using the term collaborate now to work with AI. We never used it to say, okay, we'd say use the spreadsheet, use
Yeah.
you know, the video software or whatever. I do think that it's still about using that software. Albeit a much more, powerful software, but it's interesting that how we're all talking about collaborating with
That's part,
the with
partly why,
AI.
partly because why I think the distinction is, Pranay, in my mind, is I gave you the spreadsheet, let's say pre-AI, pre-generative AI.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gave you the spreadsheet and I gave somebody else the spreadsheet. They saw the exact same data. Now the spreadsheet's in the background, and I say, "Hey, go ahead and tell me what the spreadsheet says." And I say
mm,
to the other gentleman or the other lady, "What does that spreadsheet say?" And they ask different questions, but I don't tell them what questions to ask. They
yeah,
ask different questions; they might get a different response.
yeah,
And therein lies where, okay, so may have to have more questions. Got more questions. So that's where that's why I think of collaboration as opposed to looking at a spreadsheet to get a quick answer to a question. So,
yeah. Right. I understand absolutely. And look, I am in the field helping companies drive AI. The one thing that kind of back of my head that I do worry that we should not lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, these are not people, but it's still software that is there to serve us. Yeah. Uh, all right. One other question, and it's not specifically here to the conversation that we're having today, but just more broadly, right? You see that people talking of the digital workforce and all of that kind of stuff. Uh, so, one question which all large corporations, grapple with is the build versus buy question, right? How are you making those choices at Nationwide?
Yeah, I think, Pranay, broadly speaking, at the end of the day, I don't think the fundamental criteria changes, which is we have to think about cost, we have to think about business capability,
Yeah.
we have to think about speed to market,
Yeah.
right? And so fundamentally, the criteria doesn't change. I think what we have to understand now is just like every other company,
Yeah.
what are the economics with AI? And that's
Mhm.
fast and furiously changing.
Yeah.
Um, and how you decide on value will change. And one of the things that you know better than anybody is the speed at which software development is taking place. The large language models, if they've done one thing well for enterprises, has been the ability to speed up software development.
That's true.
And so to me, can you take advantage of that? But at the end of the day, I think it becomes an economics discussion,
Yeah.
and it becomes a discussion of capability relative to economics.
Yeah. I think the aspect of speed, I think that is a really important one, is what we're seeing, that how quickly can we deploy it if you're buying it and therefore get value for it versus, let's say it takes me 6 months to build it, then, I'm losing 6 months of value. But at the same time, like you said, two other things come into play. One is that I'm able to build a lot faster today. So therefore, maybe I can build it. And then the second thing is that if the cost of building is reduced a lot, then my ability to discard it has also gone up. So I don't have perhaps not so much worry that what if this becomes, a little bit outdated? Okay, fine. I'll probably, make the changes a lot more rapidly, or I could just build it for purpose and then build something again.
Yeah, and I think there's another piece that we have to consider,
Hmm.
which could change over time, is also talent
Hmm.
and the ability for, you know, we know um, the workforce, including you, including me, all of us have to adapt very quickly to new capabilities. And so adapting to that is just as important for us to then take advantage of doing build versus buy.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Last question before we wrap up, which is I want to come back to my initial question around the investment commitment.
Yeah.
Uh, how are you, and please feel free, comfortable to answer what you can and what you can't, right? So obviously no pressure on that front. But number one, how did you arrive at that number? Like, what was the science or the art behind it? And how will you be looking at the ROI from that investment?
Yeah, I mean, look, we work, of course, Nationwide has a capital allocation model like every company does.
Yeah.
And our enterprise CTO and CFOs and everybody kind of gets together and talks through what's the appropriate allocation model, upward allocation based on our growth and our expense and our top and bottom lines that we expect. And then what are the critical needs from a technology and AI perspective, right? And
Mhm.
so where do we want to place some bets? And so
Yeah.
it's a combination of, you know, our allocation model, our affordability, and then where do we believe we want to place our bets,
Yeah.
is really what I can say relative to that. And of course, keeping in mind that we're a highly diversified um,
Yes. So lots of
organization,
different needs.
lots of different, exactly. We're a Fortune, 100 company. We
Yeah.
just had our 100th, year. And so we are celebrating being a century old. And at the
Congratulations.
same time, thank you. Yeah, yeah. At the same time, we're looking forward to what the next 100 years is going to hold for Nationwide. And
Yeah.
I don't think Nationwide is been in a better place than today to say that we're really looking forward to and making sure we can do great things for our members, and really lean into our mission for the next 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that's at the highest level. That's literally how we think about it.
Right. And what about the ROI question?
Yeah, I mean, look, ROI question is no different than what we had before. We build our business cases, and we really want to make sure that we get a little bit of time to experiment, not much,
Mhm.
and then we start making sure that those experiments can turn into wins and into business impact. And so the question for us is, when something's experimental, how much time do we give? And some of that
Yeah.
changes based on what we are doing, based on the nascentness or the maturity of capability. But look, for all our flagships, we have strong business cases. We have both the cost side of the equation and the value side of the equation. And so we really are leaning into making sure that we have the value side as a multiple of the cost side, of the equation.
No, fantastic. And it sounds like that people have to make a case whenever they want to spend, and they have to speak about it in terms of, returns of the investment. And of course, you're doing it very judiciously that there's a budget for experimentation, and then based on the success, you get the additional to scale up or not.
Yeah. And for us, at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that we can make a difference for our customers.
Excellent. Wonderful. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I wish you a lot of luck in delivering value to your customers, and as you said, protecting futures with extreme care. Thank you so much for this
Yep.
conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And it's been great to be here for the last 45 minutes talking to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.